Police brutality. Are the law enforcers really out of control?
You've had communities for a long time saying the police treat us differently.
We can't go outside in certain places, not because the bad guys are out there, but because of police officers.
Surely the question needs to be asked, does the whole law and order structure need a complete overhaul?
Cops aren't heroes?
One thing is, it's in our policy that when we are within the city, we have to have our duty weapon on us.
Sometimes people forget that we're human. We're just like anybody else. We're not bulletproof. We're not Superman as much as we'd like to be.
One of the guys that I was really good friends with that I've known for years, he goes, "Justin, you're gonna get into this and it's really gonna F with your head."
Every law enforcement officer across the nation pays the price when an officer does something wrong or does something that's unacceptable to society or society doesn't understand or agree with. We all pay for it. It follows us.
My mom was addicted to drugs. That lifestyle that she was living obviously took her out of the mindset of being a full-time mother. Therefore, it was left up to me to tend to my little brother at the time. We would go from drug house to drug house, obviously for my mom to get her fix. There's things that a child shouldn't see. I was able to kind of block that out and just kind of make sure that stays over here and let me stay focused on what I'm trying to do, which is trying to be a kid and go to school.
The job requires a lot of time. Being a police officer, especially if you're in any specialized unit like I am, I can't tell you the countless times where I've been out with my fiance and I just pray that nobody dies in a collision because I know I'm going to be called out. And we could have plans and those have to be broken at any minute. I'm tired from the day and the phone rings. And I know if it's a 937 prefix, it's the city. I know something happened. And to stare at that number, let it ring a couple of times just so it sinks in, and then answer. I've been doing it for so long, I just say, where is it? And those things are very hard, not only on your body, your mind. I just spent all day and I thought it was good. Now I have to be on my A game.
Being the only African-American female officer at the police department, at times it makes a difference, and then a lot of times it makes no difference. I think being a female probably makes a bigger difference on a day-to-day basis than being an African-American female. I can see things maybe other people don't see, a broader picture maybe because I've already been through some of those stages that they're going through. Being older, I can relate a little bit more to maybe why the citizens they encounter might respond to them the way they do. I'm a little closer to the days of where we were fighting for rights and so forth than a lot of the people that I work around, so they don't necessarily relate to that as well, I think, and I think I can see it a little bit bigger. When they can't understand why that man doesn't like the way they're speaking to them, I can say, well, he doesn't like the way you're speaking to him because he's an older man and the way you're talking to him is derogatory. Even though you haven't used any derogatory words, you're talking down to him.
Everybody in every demographic, there's certain people that make mistakes. There's certain people that don't make mistakes and do stuff that they shouldn't do. That's everywhere in the world. So we can't label law enforcement across the nation just on a few examples of officers that aren't doing the correct thing. I handle my business differently. I'm not there to prove to them that I'm better than anybody. Everybody makes mistakes, but not all of us do. A majority of us are still good people, just like those rough neighborhoods. There's 90 to 95% of great people in that neighborhood. I can't blanket that whole neighborhood just because 2 or 3 guys are knuckleheads.
This career field, it really requires you to rely on others. A lot of the other jobs that I'd had in my life, I could cowgirl up and do it all myself and everything. That's not going to happen in this career field. Stockton Police Department says whenever you're in the city of Stockton and you're in public, you have to be armed. If something comes up, you have to fulfill that duty.
When I go out in public with my family, being that I live here and work in Stockton, I don't like carrying a gun on me all the time. So for a change of scenery, for a different selection, and because I don't want to carry my gun, we'll go out of town a lot of times to do things.
When you are here in town, you're still a police officer. It's not like you're working and you're not going to handle petty theft or something that's happening. I'm always more hyper-vigilant, I guess, when I'm out, so I'm not as relaxed. So when I go out to the store, or go run an errand, or go to a restaurant, it's not as relaxing anymore.
I don't go into people's lives when they're having the best day. I'm in law enforcement. They contact me because something's gone wrong or not going the way they want. I already accept that and I understand that. But I'd like to have a fair shot when I get in there. I'd like to be judged as the person who has arrived there, not as the person that they saw on the news doing whatever it was they were doing, or saw on YouTube doing whatever it was that they saw that they disagreed with.
I think we all go through developmental changes in life, and those developmental changes impact how one sees their work and how one approaches their work. There's a lot of the population that's not very pro-police, that favors sort of the negative criticism and critiques, has a skewed perspective of what it is they're doing.
I've had individuals, black individuals, they'll tell me, "Thank you for not shooting me." And it upsets me that he would even think that, but I understand where he's coming from. But the fact that he would say that lets me know where the mindset of, my community is at. It's people's own personal view of what they have and what they see as far as what's on TV and what they see in real life.
That makes it hard when I think most peace officers are really there to serve their communities. 95% of these people want to help victims. They want to better the community they live in. They want to better a community that they feel needs it. They want to help the youth. They're really wanting to make things better. And when the people they want to make things better for are not interested in taking what they have to offer, that can be kind of demoralizing.
We in law enforcement, we take a hit for things. I mean, a lot of the stuff we're talking about going on happened on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast, but I pay the price for it. I pay the price when I go out on the street. You hear, "My hands are up," you hear all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, I understand what they're saying because of what's out there. I just arrived. I don't know you any more than you know me, but I'd like a fair shake at that. I don't want to be judged by everybody else.
At 2:11 p.m. on Wednesday, July 16th, yesterday, Stockton Police Department received a report of a robbery in progress at the Bank of the West, which is located in the 7800 block of Thornton Road. But the 3 heavily armed suspects exited the bank with 2 employees and 1 customer of the bank as hostages.
I had an actual trainee that day with me who had been on just a few months, and we run out the back door, the side door, into one of the units that was assigned to us. So we jump in and we're listening to the radio traffic, and pretty soon they're on the freeway northbound on I-5. And so I jump onto I-5 and we continue to hear that shots are being fired, not by us, but by the suspects.
The pursuit continued through Stockton. All the while, during the entire pursuit, numerous gunshots were being fired at pursuing officers. Our officers took numerous rounds during the 1-hour vehicle chase.
I hear the striking of the hood, and I knew exactly what it was. We were about the 6th car back. My car was hit twice, and the other bullet hit right in front of his face on the glass. It was a loud smack I'll never forget. And I look over, and I asked him, "Is he okay?" And he's looking at himself, and he's like, "Yeah." He's looking in the mirror, he's not bleeding. God, I'm like, well, that's good. The bullet didn't make it through the glass. Finally, we were able to disable the car, and it's just a big firefight. There is no stopping the suspect until he was disabled, and I never fired my weapon. I didn't have to. There was plenty of officers there. And I knew I had to keep them safe, so I'm watching their back, and anybody else approaching, any citizens approaching northbound, they don't want to be driving into this. So we made sure my partner and I both didn't fire. And just the way that ended, I don't call them nightmares, I have bad dreams about that. It's very, innocent people lost their lives, innocent people were hurt, and it was just all the way around, it was just a bad experience.
When I'm home, after a hard day like that, one thing I do is, first thing I do is just kind of pray, first thanking God that I made it home safely, asking him to just help me to understand the difficult things that I witnessed throughout the day. And if it's not for me to understand, then just give me the strength to overcome and to let go. And once I've calmed down and the jitters have gone away and my breathing is normal again, I start to feel myself, now I'm getting sleepy. And it's kind of like that adrenaline dump. And then I'm able to fall off to sleep.
I do have a 30-minute drive home. That's a good thing, because sometimes before you get home and you maybe take out your bad day on your loved ones at home, talking about it probably is one of the best ways to decompress. And then sometimes maybe just not talking about it really works well for me too, or at least not talking about it right now. Maybe I need a little more time to process my own emotions and my own thoughts on it before I talk about it. And that's probably when the drive home is really good, because it is quiet time.
When I leave the state, I leave work behind, but as funny as it is, I still get emails, work emails on my phone. I get calls from other officers on the street for questions regarding hit and runs or follow up on certain things. So you really never really separate yourself. Every day I leave this house, whether it's to work or go shopping, I always have to be on the lookout for anything. You just never know. You have to be vigilant. Not that I'm thinking that something's going to happen every day, but I have to be prepared. That's just how I'm geared.
Taking the uniform off and not seeing things through the eyes of a police officer all the time can be harder. And, you know, when people are worried about their safety, they're always looking kind of with that perspective. And again, it's hard if that's something you do between 8 and 12 hours, 3, 4, 5 days a week, to not see the world from that perspective. But, you know, I tell cops, you have to remember, most of us walk through life for years and years and years without carrying a firearm and without looking over our backs, without having to sit with our back at, you know, to the wall in a restaurant, and we all survive just fine.
It takes a lot to be a police officer. It allows me to be someone that my family can look up to. My son and my daughter, they can look up to their father and say, my dad is successful, he did something with his life. The danger part of it obviously affects my family. My kids aren't old enough to really understand and know the dangers yet, but obviously my wife, my mother, my grandmother, my in-laws, they know very well the danger that I face every day. They also know that I'm on one of our special task force. I'm dealing with gang members, people who are known to be violent offenders, people who are known to carry guns.
My wife and my mother, they are fearful every day I go to work, and they are scared that something might happen, you know. But that's just kind of what you signed up for. We didn't have a clue what we were going to go through. I just thought it was cool becoming a cop, and hey, it's going to be an awesome job. The schedule that I have now, I get to come home and they're already asleep, so they don't get to see the mindless looking at the TV, or I make decisions all day. All officers do. That's all we do is make decisions. So when I come home, making decisions isn't the highest priority. I really don't care what happens here at home, which sounds really bad, but it's just when I get off work, it's like it's non-caring. And that's where a lot of officers tend to get into relationship problems. And it's not that I don't care, it's just, honestly, I don't want to make a decision. I'm more of a closed person now on certain issues that I wasn't normally because of how I close it off at work. And it seems like this job has definitely put up almost a wall that I can't seem to take down quick enough when I come home. because I've got to put it up when I go outside. But then when I come home, it's definitely a challenge to decompress, I guess is the way she puts it, and get back to the normal Justin, I guess she would like to see.
Law enforcement in the family life, it is different for every household. In our particular household, I think it was an easy transition. My husband was in the military. So if you've spent any time in the military, you fully understand that there is a day that they could possibly be called to go to war. When he got out of the military, my husband, and he went into law enforcement, wasn't that far of a stretch. It wasn't that big of a difference. I fully understood that he was going to work and it was going to be dangerous.
One thing that happened to me that I never thought it would is you hear that in law enforcement, for police officers, there's a high rate of divorce. I was married 17 years, together with my ex-wife 21 years. She's my high school sweetheart. And as of 2 years, just over 2 years ago, we divorced. And I never thought it would happen. And I think it was just a cumulative things that you deal with, that you're so caught up in helping everybody else. And that's what you signed up to do, and you're proud to do it every day, that when you come home, you forget that you have to provide those services too to your family. And you can't, you know, some people say you can't save everybody, but you try. And sometimes you don't try hard enough at home. You forget about that. You overlook the problems, maybe small, that occur at home, because you're trying to help everybody else. It is a big burden on the family, and sometimes because we don't want to show weaknesses, because you can't be weak. Nobody expects a police officer to be weak. So we just neglect and just put it aside, put it on the back burner per se, and not deal with it till sometimes it's too late.
A lot of cops come home and they think they need to protect their spouse and not share with them what they've seen or touched or handled during the day, during their shift. Most people select people that are somewhat equal to them. And so if you're, a tough police officer, I'd say your spouse is probably usually pretty tough as well and can hear most of what you have to offer. It's the lack of connection that I think breaks down a lot of the relationship, as opposed to necessarily what is or isn't being shared in and of itself. I spent a lot of time in counseling couples talking about the responsibility of a spouse to take what your cop has to offer and to listen.
If I wasn't a police officer, because of how I look, because of my tattoos and my hairstyle, my earrings and everything, I would hate to walk down the street and someone to say that black person right there is definitely a gangster or definitely a dope dealer. I hate when one bad officer does something wrong and the entire country says that all police officers are bad.
Sometimes people forget that we're human. We're just like anybody else. We have financial troubles, we have illnesses, we get sick. We're not Superman as much as we'd like to be. We're not bulletproof.
We're not better than anybody else. We are just pretty much the people that have to clean up the mistakes that other people make. We're all different, and everybody's different. It's just we wear a uniform.
I mean, we already know we're hated pretty much by everybody. But to get up and go do that job anyway, to go out and still do your best, try and serve the citizen, serve the law enforcement industry, and package it all, how honorable is that? It's the most honorable job I've had outside of being a mom.